2 words: know your place. That's what the officer said to her, right there on a crowded courthouse sidewalk, loud enough for everyone to hear. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue. She simply reached into her bag, and what she pulled out made his entire chain of command come running within the hour. Before we go further, hit subscribe. The reveal will leave you speechless. The courthouse plaza buzzed with midday foot traffic. Special Agent Yvonne Marsh walked briskly toward the federal building entrance, a slim leather bag over her shoulder, mind already 3 meetings ahead. She wasn't in a hurry to draw attention. She never was. That was the nature of her work. Officer Wesley Cade stood near the entrance checkpoint, arms crossed, watching the flow of people with lazy authority. "Ma'am, this entrance is restricted," he said, stepping directly into her path. "I have clearance," Yvonne replied evenly, reaching for her credentials. Cade didn't wait for her to finish the motion. "I don't care what you think you have. This entrance is for authorized personnel only." "I am authorized personnel," she said, voice calm but firm. Cade smirked, glancing at the small crowd of onlookers gathering near the steps. "Sweetheart, I've worked this checkpoint for 6 years. I think I'd know if someone like you belonged here." The words landed heavy, deliberate. A few people nearby exchanged uncomfortable glances. Yvonne's expression didn't change. She'd heard variations of this sentence more times than she cared to count. "Someone like me," she repeated quietly. "You know what I mean," Cade said, stepping closer, voice dropping into something colder. "Know your place. This isn't a public sidewalk." The plaza went quiet. Yvonne reached into her bag, slow, deliberate, controlled. Cade's hand instinctively moved toward his radio. She pulled out a slim leather case and flipped it open. His radio slipped slightly in his grip, because the credentials in her hand weren't a courthouse visitor badge. They were federal, and within the hour, 3 black SUVs would pull up to that exact checkpoint. Cade stared at the credentials, his smirk collapsing into confusion. "Federal Bureau of Investigation, Special Agent Yvonne Marsh." "You're FBI?" he stammered, voice cracking slightly. "Special Agent Marsh," she confirmed, closing the case with a soft click. "Assigned to this courthouse for a federal case beginning this afternoon." Cade's hand slowly lowered from his radio, color draining from his face. "I didn't know." "You didn't ask," Yvonne said, her tone even, but carrying real weight now. "You assumed. There's a difference." A woman in the gathering crowd lifted her phone, recording quietly. Others had already started whispering, the earlier discomfort shifting into something sharper, recognition of what they'd just witnessed. "Ma'am, I was just following checkpoint procedure," Cade said, grasping for footing that had already slipped away. "Checkpoint procedure," Yvonne repeated slowly. "Is that what you call telling a federal agent to know her place?" Cade opened his mouth, but nothing useful came out. "I've walked through this checkpoint 11 times in the past 3 weeks," Yvonne continued. "Always in professional attire, always with credentials ready. You've stopped me 4 of those 11 times." His face went pale. "You never stopped my partner," she added quietly. "Same clearance level, same badge. He's walked through without a single question." Cade's jaw tightened, understanding exactly what she was implying, unable to find any defense against it. "I need your name and badge number," Yvonne said, pulling a small notepad from her bag with practiced efficiency. "And I'll need you to remain at this checkpoint. Someone will be along shortly to discuss what just happened." "Someone?" Cade asked, voice unsteady. Yvonne's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, then back at him. "My supervisor," she said. "He heard everything. I called him the moment you told me not to reach for my credentials." Cade's stomach dropped as 3 black SUVs rounded the corner, pulling directly toward the checkpoint. The SUVs came to a controlled stop, doors opening in near-perfect unison. A tall man in a dark suit stepped out first. Supervisory Special Agent Robert Kim, expression unreadable, eyes already locked on the checkpoint. Cade's hands began to tremble. "Agent Marsh," Kim said, approaching with brisk purpose. "You all right?" "I'm fine," Yvonne replied. Officer Cade and I were just discussing checkpoint protocol. Kim's gaze shifted to Cade, sharp and assessing. Is that what happened here? Cade swallowed hard. Sir, I heard the audio, Kim interrupted, holding up his phone. Agent Marsh's line was still connected when this conversation started. Every word came through clearly. Cade's face went white as paper. Know your place, Kim read aloud, voice flat and cold. Someone like you. I think I'd know if someone like you belonged here. The gathered crowd's whispers grew louder, several more phones rising to capture the moment. Sir, I didn't mean it like, Cade started. How did you mean it? Kim asked, cutting him off completely. Because I've reviewed the courthouse's visitor logs from the past 3 weeks. Agent Marsh was stopped 4 times. Her partner, Agent Sullivan, same clearance, same badge, was never stopped once. Cade had no answer. There wasn't one. This isn't the first complaint against this checkpoint, Kim continued, turning toward the courthouse's head of security, who had just arrived, breathless. Is it? The head of security, a heavy-set man named Frank Doyle, hesitated. There have been a few reports. Nothing substantiated. Nothing substantiated, Kim repeated slowly. Or nothing investigated. Doyle said nothing, which answered the question entirely. Kim turned back to Cade, his voice dropping into something far more serious. You're going to want to sit down for what happens next. Cade's legs felt unsteady beneath him as Kim continued. Effective immediately, you're relieved of checkpoint duty, pending a formal federal review, Kim said. This incident, along with prior unsubstantiated complaints, will be fully investigated, not by this courthouse's internal security, but by an independent oversight panel. Independent? Doyle asked, visibly uncomfortable. Given the pattern, Kim said, turning toward him, internal review clearly hasn't worked. 4 stops out of 11 visits, targeting one agent specifically, while her equally credentialed partner walked through without incident. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. Yvonne stepped forward, her voice steady but quiet. I didn't do this for retaliation. Kim turned to her. I know. I did this, she continued, looking directly at Cade now, because I've had this conversation before. Different officer, different courthouse, same 2 words, know your place. And every time, nothing changed, because nobody with authority was standing close enough to hear it. Cade lowered his head, the weight of her words landing harder than any reprimand from Kim could have. I'm not interested in ending your career, Officer Cade, Yvonne said. I'm interested in you understanding exactly what those words do to someone standing on the other side of them. Cade looked up, genuine shame crossing his face for the first time. I don't have an excuse. No, Yvonne agreed. You don't. Kim gestured toward Doyle. Every complaint filed against this checkpoint over the past 2 years. Pulled, reviewed, reopened. All of them. Doyle nodded slowly, already reaching for his phone to begin the process. As the crowd slowly dispersed, phones lowering, whispers fading into quiet reflection, Yvonne turned back toward the federal building entrance, the same entrance she'd been denied minutes earlier. This time, she walked through without a single word exchanged. But the story wasn't over yet, because 3 weeks later, something happened that neither Cade nor Yvonne expected. 3 weeks later, the federal courthouse held a mandatory training session. Bias awareness, checkpoint protocol reform, de-escalation practices. Every officer assigned to courthouse security sat in attendance. Standing at the front of the room wasn't a hired consultant or an outside trainer. It was Yvonne. Cade sat near the back, having narrowly avoided termination after a formal review determined his conduct warranted retraining rather than dismissal, a decision Yvonne herself had recommended. I could have ended your career, she said, addressing the room but looking directly at him. Some of you probably think I should have, but punishment alone doesn't fix a pattern. Understanding does. She clicked through a presentation, body cam footage, visitor logs, complaint patterns from courthouses across the region, all showing the same story, repeating in different uniforms, different cities. This isn't about one bad officer, she said. It's about assumptions that get made in seconds, without any real information, that end up defining someone's entire day, sometimes their entire career. Cade sat rigid, absorbing every word. After the session ended, he approached her hesitantly. Agent Marsh, I wanted to say thank you for not ending it there, and I'm sorry, genuinely. Yvonne studied him for a moment. Do you understand why it mattered? Not the badge, not the title, just why it mattered. Cade nodded slowly. Because you deserved basic respect walking through that door, same as anyone else. You shouldn't have needed federal credentials to get it. Exactly, Yvonne said quietly. 6 months later, courthouse checkpoint complaints across the region had dropped by nearly 60%. The training program Yvonne developed became mandatory across 3 federal districts. Cade remained at his post, the same checkpoint, the same entrance, but something in the way he greeted people had changed. Every person, regardless of what they looked like or how they were dressed, received the same simple courtesy, a nod, a good morning, and no assumptions. Because respect, Yvonne had taught him, was never something anyone should have to prove. It was something everyone deserved to receive first.